What happens when Hollywood royalty meets morning television reality? You won't believe what unfolds when Meghan Markle sits down with Lara Spencer on Good Morning America and everything goes catastrophically wrong. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone sideways. This is a full-blown meltdown that had producers scrambling, cameras rolling, and viewers witnessing one of the most explosive confrontations in morning show history. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because you're not going to believe what unfolds. The tension was palpable from the moment Meghan Markle walked onto the GMA set last night. Sources behind the scenes reported that the Duchess had arrived nearly 30 minutes late, keeping the entire production waiting while she made last-minute demands about the interview questions. Studio insiders whispered about heated phone calls between Markle's representatives and the show's producers, with negotiations continuing right up until the cameras started rolling. Lara Spencer, seasoned veteran of morning television drama, wasn't about to let anyone dictate terms on her show. As she settled into her chair across from Markle, viewers could sense something was different. Spencer's usual warm demeanor seemed strained, her smile more forced than genuine. The lighting crew had worked overtime to accommodate Markle's specific requests about angles and shadows, but nothing seemed to satisfy the former actress turned royal turned media mogul. "Good evening, and welcome back to Good Morning America," Spencer began, her voice carrying an edge that regular viewers immediately picked up on. "We're here with Meghan Markle, who has certainly kept us all waiting tonight." The comment landed like a small bomb in the studio, with Markle's eyes flashing dangerously as she adjusted her position in the cream-colored chair. Markle's response was swift and cutting. "Well, Lara, I think quality is worth waiting for, don't you? I've learned that rushing into things without proper preparation can lead to unfortunate consequences." The barb was clearly aimed at Spencer's reputation for sometimes going off-script, and the host's jaw tightened visibly. Spencer wasn't going to let that slide. "Speaking of preparation, let's talk about your latest venture. Your podcast has faced some criticism lately about factual accuracy. How do you respond to claims that you've been spreading misinformation?" The question came out of nowhere, clearly not part of the agreed-upon talking points, and Markle's composure cracked for just a moment. "I'm sorry. What exactly are you referring to?" Markle's voice rose slightly, her carefully practiced media training slipping. "Because I think if we're talking about misinformation, we should probably discuss the British tabloids first, shouldn't we?" She leaned forward aggressively, her eyes never leaving Spencer's face. The studio audience, initially excited to see the former royal, began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the light, promotional chat they'd been expecting. Camera operators zoomed in closer, sensing that something genuinely explosive was building between these two powerful women. Spencer doubled down, her journalistic instincts kicking in. "Well, since you brought up the tabloids, let's address the elephant in the room. Your relationship with your own family has been complicated. Your father, Thomas Markle, has made several public statements claiming you've cut him off completely. How do you justify abandoning the man who raised you?" The question hit like a sledgehammer. Markle's face went through a series of emotions: shock, anger, and something that looked almost like panic. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair so tightly her knuckles went white. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "Did you just accuse me of abandoning my father?" "I'm asking about his public statements," Spencer pressed, clearly sensing she'd struck a nerve. "He's appeared on multiple shows, in tears, talking about how you won't speak to him. That's not tabloid gossip, Meghan. Those are his own words." The camera caught every micro-expression on Markle's face as she processed what was happening. This wasn't going according to plan. Her team had negotiated specific topics that would be off-limits, and family relationships were supposed to be one of them. But Spencer was clearly throwing the agreed-upon script out the window. "You know what, Lara?" Markle's voice was getting stronger, more confrontational. "I think we need to talk about journalistic ethics here. Because last time I checked, Ambushing your guests with questions that weren't pre-approved isn't exactly professional behavior, is it? Spencer's eyes lit up with the thrill of the confrontation. Pre-approved questions? Meghan, this is journalism, not a publicity tour. If you can't handle real questions, maybe you shouldn't be sitting in that chair. The studio fell silent, except for the whir of cameras, capturing every second of the escalating tension. Markle's media training was warring with her obvious anger, and cracks were starting to show in her carefully constructed public persona. But what came next would prove that Lara Spencer had severely underestimated just how far the former Duchess was willing to go when cornered. Markle leaned back in her chair, a cold smile spreading across her face that didn't reach her eyes. You know what, Lara? Since we're throwing professionalism out the window, let's talk about your track record. How many guests have complained about your ambush tactics over the years? Because I've done my research too. Spencer's confidence wavered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. This isn't about me, Meghan. This is about accountability, something you seem to have trouble with. The barb hit its mark, and Markle's composure finally snapped. Accountability? Markle's voice rose to a level that made several crew members exchange worried glances. Let's talk about accountability, shall we? Like how you've built your entire career on tearing down other women? How you've made millions by manufacturing drama where none existed? Her finger was now pointing directly at Spencer. All pretense of media training abandoned. The veteran host wasn't backing down. If anything, Spencer seemed energized by the confrontation. That's rich, coming from someone who's made victimhood into a brand. Tell me, how much money have you made complaining about your life in the palace? Because last I checked, most people would consider living in luxury while being waited on hand and foot a pretty good deal. Gasps echoed through the studio audience. This had crossed every line of morning television decorum. Producers in the control room were frantically trying to decide whether to cut to commercial or let this train wreck continue for the ratings gold it was generating. Markle stood up so abruptly that her chair rolled backward. The microphone pack still clipped to her designer blazer, creating feedback through the sound system. How dare you? She hissed, her voice trembling with rage. You have absolutely no idea what I went through. The racism, the isolation, the complete lack of support from an institution that was supposed to protect me. Oh, here we go, Spencer shot back, also rising from her seat. The victim card, again. Meghan, you knew exactly what you were signing up for when you married into that family. You're not the first American to join the royals, and the others managed to adapt without burning everything down around them. Adapt? Markle's laugh was bitter and sharp. You mean stay silent while they destroy you from the inside? While they feed lies to the press and use you as a scapegoat for every problem the monarchy faces? She was pacing now, her hands gesticulating wildly as years of pent-up frustration poured out. Spencer sensed she had her cornered and went in for the kill. Maybe the problem isn't the institution, Meghan. Maybe the problem is you. Because everywhere you go, drama follows. Hollywood, the royal family, and now your own family won't speak to you. At what point do you look in the mirror and ask yourself what the common denominator is? The words hung in the air like a physical blow. Markle stopped pacing, her face cycling through emotions so quickly the cameras could barely keep up. Shock gave way to hurt, which immediately transformed into pure, unbridled fury. You want to know what the common denominator is? Markle's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow felt more threatening than her earlier shouting. It's people like you. People who can't stand to see a strong woman who refuses to be silenced. People who make money by tearing down anyone who dares to speak their truth. Spencer wasn't finished. Strong women don't abandon their elderly fathers and cut off their families. Strong women don't manipulate situations to always cast themselves as the victim. And strong women certainly don't storm off interviews when they can't control the narrative. I haven't stormed off anything, Markle snapped. But even as she said it, her eyes were darting toward the exit. The fight or flight response was clearly kicking in, and Spencer could sense victory within her grasp. Not yet, Spencer replied, with a smirk that infuriated Markle even further. But we both know that's your signature move, isn't it? When things get uncomfortable, when people start asking real questions, you just disappear. First from your family, then from royal duties, and now, but Spencer had pushed too far. What happened next would go down in television history as one of the most explosive celebrity meltdowns ever captured on live television. Markle's face contorted with rage as she ripped the microphone pack from her blazer and hurled it onto the coffee table with such force that the crystal water glasses shattered. The sharp crack echoed through the stunned studio as shards scattered across the polished surface. "You want to see me storm off?" she screamed, her voice raw with fury. "Fine! But first, let me tell you exactly what kind of person you really are, Lara Spencer." The audience sat frozen in their seats, some covering their mouths in shock, while others fumbled for their phones to capture this unprecedented meltdown. Security guards took tentative steps forward, but were waved back by frantic producers who knew they were witnessing television gold, no matter how chaotic. "You're a vulture," Markle continued, her composure completely obliterated. "You feed off other people's pain and call it journalism. You've spent years destroying reputations, breaking up families, and ruining lives, all for ratings." Her finger jabbed through the air towards Spencer, who had gone pale, but maintained her defiant stance. Spencer tried to regain control of the situation, her voice slightly shaky but still combative. "Meghan, you need to calm down and sit back down. This is exactly the kind of behavior that proves my point about—" "Don't!" Markle's shriek cut through Spencer's words like a blade. "Don't you dare try to manage me or tell me what to do. I am done being managed by people like you." She grabbed her purse from beside the chair and swung it over her shoulder with such violence that it knocked over a decorative plant, sending soil spilling across the pristine studio floor. "You think you can ambush me with questions about my father?" Markle's voice cracked with emotion, tears of rage streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "A man who sold pictures of me to the tabloids? Who gave interviews attacking me while I was planning my wedding? You know nothing about what I've been through." Spencer, perhaps realizing she had unleashed something she couldn't control, tried a different approach. "Meghan, I understand you're upset, but violence isn't the answer here. Let's take a breath." "And violence?" Markle laughed hysterically, the sound echoing off the studio walls. "I broke a glass, Lara. You've been verbally assaulting me for the past 20 minutes on national television. But sure, let's talk about my violence, while you sit there destroying my reputation for entertainment." The former Duchess began pacing erratically, her designer heels clicking against the studio floor like gunshots. Camera operators struggled to keep up with her movements while maintaining focus. "You want to know why I left the royal family? It's because of people exactly like you. People who twist every word, who turn every gesture into a scandal, who can't let anyone just live their life without tearing them apart." Spencer stood her ground, though her hands were visibly trembling. "You're proving my point, Meghan. This is exactly the kind of unhinged behavior that—" "Unhinged?" Markle spun around so fast her hair whipped across her face. "I'll show you unhinged." She marched over to the promotional backdrop with her podcast logos and began ripping down the carefully positioned banners. The sound of tearing fabric filled the stunned silence as marketing materials fluttered to the ground like confetti. "Security!" Spencer finally called out. But Markle was already heading toward the exit, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. She paused at the studio door and turned back one final time. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks, her hair disheveled, her chest heaving with exhaustion and rage. "You know what, Lara? You win. You got exactly what you wanted. You turned what was supposed to be a simple interview into a circus, and now you'll have content to milk for weeks. Congratulations on destroying another woman on national television." Her voice was hoarse now, the fight finally draining out of her. Spencer, perhaps feeling a flicker of remorse, took a step forward. "Meghan, wait." But it was too late. Markle held up her hand in a final gesture of dismissal. No, I'm done. With this show, with you, and with people who think they can treat others like disposable entertainment. She looked directly into the main camera, her eyes blazing with defiance despite the tears. To anyone watching this, remember that there are real people behind these interviews, real human beings with feelings and families and breaking points. With that, she pushed through the studio doors, leaving them swinging wildly behind her. The sound of her heels could be heard echoing down the hallway, growing fainter and fainter, until there was nothing but stunned silence in the studio. Spencer stood amid the wreckage. Broken glass, scattered soil, torn promotional materials, and an audience in complete shock. For the first time in her career, the veteran host seemed truly at a loss for words. The cameras continued rolling, capturing her bewildered expression as she surveyed the destruction left in Markle's wake. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Spencer turned to face the main camera. Her usual confidence was nowhere to be found, replaced by something that looked almost like regret. "Well," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper, "I guess that's a wrap." The control room finally cut to commercial, but the damage was done. In less than an hour, Meghan Markle had delivered one of the most explosive exits in television history, leaving behind a destroyed set, a shaken host, and footage that would be replayed and analyzed for years to come. The former Duchess had gotten the last word after all.